So welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight, and today Jason Christoff is back, and our topic will be, how to lose addictions. Many people are struggling with it, and is especially with quitting the addiction. And we will have a look what the reasons are and what might be a better way to try again. So, Jason, when I thought about this topic, I thought to myself, we are really a funny species. I mean, apart from substance addiction, we have sex addicts, we have workaholics, we have gambling addiction, we have serious eating disorders, be that on the starving side or that people cannot stop eating. On top of that, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people are constantly staring into their phone. And so, is there anything that we cannot turn into an addiction?
I would, I mean, we're trying as hard as we can, hey, Judith, to turn everything we put our hands on into an addiction for sure. And I mean, Dr. Gabor Mate, who's a famous Canadian sort of behavioral doctorate, he always says it's better to ask the question, what's right with the addiction as opposed to what's wrong with the addiction. So as our society today becomes more and more stressed, more and more in pain, there's a little bit of a process that goes on where we like to dull the pain or kill the pain. And that's just natural. But today it's even worse because we have this general trend in our society that says that pain is a goblin. It is something that needs to be avoided. So it feels natural on one hand to avoid the pain, and it feels good to sedate to it or tranquilize to it with all these addictions. So even if we didn't have a media and a government and a medical system telling the public that pain is a goblin and you really got to run as fast as you can in the other direction, you can see that our natural tendency to kill pain without any influence is just going to be heightened and up leveled by this constant media barrage that paints anybody in pain as broken, as defective, as in need of immediate manipulation so they can get back to that life that's not making them happy. And we'll give an example. We'll have a school teacher. Government staffers are very prolific with their use of painkillers. And this is because the more painful your work environment or your life, the more you'll have this magnetic affinity for any painkiller. So a lot of people that work jobs that don't satisfy on the soul level, they will get on your usual step-by-step approach to dealing with the spiritual pain of living out a life that'll never make you happy. And that step-by-step approach is basically you start with coffee. This is the world's biggest addiction, is caffeine addiction. And it has a huge, massive effect on the nervous system. In layman's terms, Judith, it is said that caffeine makes the slavery feel groovy. So if you're working sort of an meaningless, mindless job, and no one's really designed to do those jobs. We have a government indoctrination system we call the school system that really preps people to go down these paths that are going to make them depressed. Because everything's about job focus. Nothing focuses on your innate human potential. You're just sort of a reflexively obedient order follower, and you just go out and ask people to boss you around for the highest salary. Now, that's going to be very painful. So the stepped approach is usually start with the caffeine. Now, if you study caffeine like I do for a living, caffeine is really good at dulling the pain, and it causes a whole bunch of other problems, but it does allow you to engage in a life that's not giving you satisfaction for a longer period. It does not last forever. It will not, it usually will only break the pain or dull the pain or tranquilize the pain of a meaningless path in life for a decade. And then the person finds, okay, the quiet whispers of my soul are getting louder. The caffeine is not dulling the pain like it used to. They might double up on the caffeine, but they usually add alcohol. So you have caffeine in the morning, alcohol in the evening, sedative entertainment like the sports ball game, or the horse shows or movies, or on Netflix, the TV series. So we start making like a pain-killing sandwich, Judith. And then you throw in the junk food on a Friday night. And see, that's the scary thing about the pain cycle, is that you can't really feel it when you're in a full gallop. So the average person is really galloping along Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And that's why they really pile it on the Friday night, the Saturday night, because it's the only free time you have. So when you turn down the racket of the universe, the society that's not making us happy, the volume goes away when we leave the insanity. We go into the sanctity of our own home. The volume of our misery is turned, basically what we're doing to distract from our misery is turned down. That means we can hear it a lot easier. And then the person doesn't want to hear it because they've been told that the pain and these ideas are bad things, that, these are bad ideas. You need to avoid them, because the entire school system, Judith, told us that this was the good life. Like you go, you get good grades, you pay for additional indoctrination in college or university, and then you get into massive debt. You start buying things, and everybody can't wait to buy things. That'll finally make me happy. And it doesn't. It doesn't make people happy. What makes people happy is progress. That's what makes people happy. It's proven that what human needs to be happy is progression in their life. And when you get on a corporate slide and there's really no progression, it's this Groundhog Day, day in and day out, and it will give you this pain. So all these addictions that we're dealing with have to do with all the these pain generating lies that we are taught. And lies create pain. Like if you believe that putting your hand on a hot stove element will cool it, the universal law is there to remind you that you're living a lie, because pain is always equated with lies. The hot stove element will not cool your hand. If you believe you can jump out of a 10-story window and you could fly, the impact with the ground is the universe there, the pain, to let you know that you're living a lie. So when you're engaging life in a way where it's boring, you feel sort of, I used to have suicidal ideation all the time when I was living these lies. I always felt like I wanted to commit suicide. I never tried it, but it was always there, sort of a background noise that, if it gets any worse, at least I can kill myself,
Mm.
because I wasn't happy whatsoever. So what happens is people pile on all these sedative addictions, and they make this really thick sub, like a real thick sandwich out of it. They got the coffee, the junk food, the alcohol. Maybe they throw in some antidepressants, because that's what happens when all the free sort of tranquilizers and pain-killing substances don't do the job anymore. And they also cause more depression. So eventually you'll get to the medical scenario where the person's really broken from this cycle, and they're coming in and they're not saying I'm addicted with all the normalized addictions. They're just showing up at their doctor's office and saying, look, I'm depressed. I'm a school teacher. They're not really, of course, the doctor doesn't review how much alcohol they're having. They don't review how much coffee, and coffee causes depression. Coffee causes like if someone wants to know how fatal coffee is as a substance to take in every day, they can read Caffeine Blues by Stephen Chernisky, or they can just write me at info@jchristoff.com. I've one article that really tabulates how fatal, how unhealthy coffee is to take every day. So the doctor just has that reinforcement of what we're taught to believe. The doctor will say, hey, the doctor's not going to say, look, have you questioned your relationship? What about your TV watching? Are you watching scary movies? Are you using your mouth as a garbage compactor because that causes depression? Are you having alcohol because that's a proven depressant? Caffeine causes depression. No one's reviewing with the person their lifestyle. There's no test at the doctor for what's in your kitchen cupboards. There's no test at the doctor for what's in your fridge. It's just you come in and say you're not feeling right. And it would be great to say, well, are you dissatisfied with your job? Or even, are you aware that government staffers have the most depression? Do you happen to work for the government? They don't say any of that. They reinforce this idea that really buckles us spiritually, is that you're broken. There's something wrong with you. You have a problem because everybody else is happy out there. Why aren't you happy? No one's happy out there. This is the big conundrum. No one's happy out there. No one can be happy. Humans can't be happy unless they're making progress in their life. So then they say, look, take this pill. Don't ask any questions about why you're unhappy. Get back on the treadmill. You get back out on the track and you get out there, Mrs. or Mr., and you keep running down that road to Miseryville. And that's how they frame pain today. It's like as soon as someone experiences some pain, we're given all these addictions and we're given all these things that dull our pain. But here's the big problem, Judith. It's been proven in psychology that you need pain to mature and individuate into an adult. That's a big problem with a society that doesn't like pain. I ran a race. I was in grade 7. There were 6 people. I finished last. And I didn't, there's gold, silver, and bronze. I was 6th. There's some pain there for me because I finished last out of the race. Now, today, they know that finishing last causes pain. You see that overarching sort of idea over our whole society in many different ways, like a big dome. So today, everybody gets a participation ribbon and they pat themselves on the back because they think avoiding pain, because it's our mantra, our motto in our society, pain is bad, please avoid it. And so that person who gets a participation ribbon is proven never to mature or individuate out of childhood and into adulthood. So when I finished last, I went home crying. In the pain, I felt it. So what are the benefits of that? So you see a kid crying, you're like, I don't want Jason to cry when he was in grade 7. Someone go help Jason. No, hold on a second, because pain has a purpose. So I went home, my mom, who's just your typical mom, poor Jason, she knows not to take away all my pain. Because this is a pain. It's not like I got beat up unfairly by a bully on the way home. This is your natural progression. So my mom knew that. So she said, look, Jason, do you want to do better next year? Because it was at a regatta, which was like a sports day. It's once a year at my school. So my mom said, do you want to do better next year? And I said, absolutely. So there's the benefit of the pain. So it helped me mature, helped me change, helped me blossom from a caterpillar to a butterfly. I started training harder, eating better, getting to bed on time, researching proper stride, proper running techniques. And then it goes all the way. And I'm like really biding my time. I'm like, I'm going to get everybody next year. And then I get down next year in grade 8 and I came first. What they're doing to our society is they are infantilizing the society by making sure no one matures, by reframing pain as a goblin. And today you have everybody trying to avoid this pain and not realizing the benefit of it. We have safe zones at school. Like I was at university and they gave us a tour and said, well, yeah, if you're kind of upset, here's a safe zone. And I'm like, what the what are you talking about? Well, safe zone. How old are we? We're 18 to 23 years old here at university. We don't need a safe zone. We got to experience the world. Sure, if there's a couple psychopaths, the safe zone's not going to really protect anybody. But we have to understand that most of our addictions today, one aspect of it, because there's other aspects. I just went on a long rant about one aspect, but everybody thinks life's supposed to be a nonstop carnival ride, right? In that they look at this now, Judith, as one of their most basic human rights, fun. Fun is their most basic human rights. This is why they're bringing the cell phones into the school, bringing cell phones into work. Everybody's screwing around. The society's collapsing because they've catapulted this, something that used to be very fleeting and temporary in tribal life, which was fun and leisure. And they've catapulted it up to like a First Amendment right. And along with this First Amendment right, which is designed to collapse our society into its own footprint, comes old people's desires to always be sedated and high. Sugar, caffeine, alcohol, fast-acting carbohydrates, vaping, marijuana, legal in Canada. In Canada, you can be high on marijuana and they can't send you home from your job, even though you're so high that you cannot execute said job.
Mhm.
So you can see the government's in on the con. The people respond to the dome that the government puts over them in regards to the ideology. But if you want, there's another reason people are addicted that's much more interesting. I'll allow you to speak during your own podcast. Absolutely.
I was just thinking, I love synchronicities. Recently, I did an interview with Wayne McRoy, and we also talked about the subject of arrested development. And that is probably what you were alluding to, meaning we do not really become adults by constantly avoiding pain.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's natural pain, and in the great way too to naturally mature. People really don't have to do too much, as they would maybe address quitting one of their addictions. Because when you take this force field, this tranquilizer, painkiller out of your bloodstream, out of your brain, you have to face your pain. And this is a great way to face the pain. It's called the pain teacher. So if people want to envision how this looks like, I was an arrested sort of person all the way up, arrested development all the way up to I was 30. And I was in this cycle as well. I would do cocaine. I would also do steroids. That is like an anti-inflammatory, but I was like a bigger, stronger. So I didn't have to deal with the pain of feeling vulnerable. So there's many ways to kill pain. The cocaine, the alcohol, and I was so addicted to the lies that this was the good life. I'd watch Scarface, watched all these movies. If you had some money and you had a fast car, doing some cocaine on the weekend, with the right females. This is the good life. So I was so depressed. I was at rock bottom. I would be crawling sort of along the ground of rock bottom, like too stupid to react to the pain teacher. And it wasn't just rock bottom, it was covered in glass and lava. So I really dragged myself to my destruction. And then one day, the pain teacher would stick her head in every once in a while and say, "Hey, Jason, are you ready to have tea with me and listen to the messages that only the pain can deliver. And there was one day I'm just like, oh, I guess so. Like, I'm not doing anything down here at rock bottom. So the pain teacher will knock on everybody's door when you're in the state of arrested development, trying to avoid the pain. And the pain teacher is this really gleeful, knowledge-filled protector of you. It's not a goblin. It's the pain teacher's a guardian. And she will knock quietly every day and say, are you willing to learn and listen yet? So I opened the door. I used to slam the door every day in the pain teacher's face, slam the door. And she said, oh, you're willing to, have me in. And she would say, okay, now that I'm in, go put on a big pot of non-caffeinated tea because we're going to be a while because you've been avoiding me for a very long time. So I have some of these lessons. I have lessons you should have learned when you were 16. Now you're 30. Other lessons you should have learned when you're 18, 20, 21, 22. Like we might have, 300 to 400 valuable lessons to go over so you can finally mature into an adult that doesn't cut your own head off. So I said, well, the only other option is me bleeding to death at rock bottom. So yeah, I'll take your pot of coffee and we'll sit down. So yes, this is what the arrested development does is it's all based on you avoiding just coming into full unsedated, untranquilized contact, usually with your ultimately shitty life. And you have to face that your life is potentially, my life was empty, meaningless, directionless. It was picked, my whole life, my habits, my ideas and beliefs were picked off the spinner rack of media inputs. I was mimicking one movie with my car choice, mimicking another movie character with my attitude, mimicking another character with my clothes. This had nothing to do with who I was. I was just picking it from the mindless and meaningless options that the media and the government would hand out and say, you know what? Pick off the spinner rack of misery, dedicate yourself to being a battery inside the system. And if you're depressed, I'll just give you some more drugs, something that kills your pain to a higher degree. So yes, this is exactly what you're talking about. This is why the average person today is in a permanent state of arrested development because the sort of media and the government ideology is that this is our First Amendment right and that pain is a goblin, shouldn't listen to it, slam the door. And to be honest with you, this isn't chance happening. This is not happenstance. This is the ruling group knowing everything I said plus more, knowing that if you're in the position as being a ruler, and this group has been in that position a long time, if you want to know how long, there's a documentary called Cult of the Medics that people can go watch for themselves to see how old this group is. But they know that if we can pile in all the sedation, all the tranquilizing substances, and also pontificate and advertise that pain is something like it's your First Amendment right to party and have fun, and pain is really bad. So make sure you're sedate. If you can not only put in the substances, but normalize their use like that, you get an infantilized society. And it's like stealing candy from a baby, literally, because the person would be 40, 50, 60 years old, acting, talking, and thinking like a child. Like in Mexico down here, the North Americans are famous for being 50 and 60 and acting like they're 18, talking like they're 18, thinking like they're 18. The Mexicans laugh at the North Americans. They come down, they got a 60-year-old, just got a full arm sleeve tattoo, drunk, falling into the pool, trying to hit on like the 20-year-olds at the all-you-can-drink bar. The Mexicans are like, what's wrong with you people? And I'm like, you don't understand. It's all sort of part and parcel. I've talked to the Mexicans about this before, is that it's all part and parcel of destroying a society in ways where the people getting destroyed don't notice because they're so screwed up on the painkillers. They have this massive disconnect between their nervous system and their reality. I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, it does. So what I'm hearing is that addiction has a lot to do with trauma. Would you say it's largely trauma based?
Yeah, and not only do they give us all these painkillers, I mean, they give us the trauma, right? I mean, as soon as I was born, some doctor cut off 25 to 30% of my penis, just off the top, of course, because it's has the most nerve endings per square centimeter on the entire body. That's a trauma-based ritual. And then it just got more insane from there on in, from the first day I was born. And everything's trauma based, separating from our parents, not having healthy food. The media is purposely traumatizing, even for adults. If you hook a adult up to a brain scan and have them watch Netflix, any Netflix show, it's completely traumatizing, which it's designed to be. So not only do they give us the trauma to make us pretty well, like when I'm in a bus, Judith, I look around, or if I'm on a subway or maybe at the Frankfurt airport and taking a bus to the next plane, I look around and know, hey, we're all trauma victims, all of us, right? I'm like, hey, high five. We're all trauma victims. We're all screwed up in some way, but there's ways to deal with that. I'll get to the solutions as well. So we don't all just stay trauma victims, but the world is purposely traumatized. And if people don't understand how it's planned to be traumatizing, I know you might know this guy. I hope he's on good standing in your brain, but there's a guy called Oli Demigard. Do you know him?
Yeah, yeah. YouTube just deleted one of my interviews with him.
Right. So Oli's got some pretty good stories about how long this, like basically all the governments are holding hands behind the scene and organizing. Like Oli told me some stories from his childhood that I couldn't believe. I wasn't interviewed by him. I was getting interviewed with him. I stopped getting, like, I refused to be interviewed. I became the interviewer. I was so interested in these stories. But his stories will really impress upon the public that our trauma is a full-time job of all the governments. It's not one or the other. They all talk to each other. And Oli was talking about his father, who was an assassin. This it gets pretty murky and dark. But his dad was an assassin, used to organize weapon caches for people in government so they would hide large amounts of ammunition and guns, and their job was to work for the government and basically take the guns at random, go shoot members of the public at random in town squares, sports events, schools, in order to keep them traumatized. And if it wasn't one country that was organizing these assassinations, it was another country. Their job is to keep us traumatized. Because what I'm describing with the first 25 minutes here is sort of like a watch. There's a watch, it has 150 pieces. The average watch does have 150 pieces, and they all work together to execute one goal, which is telling the time. Everything I'm talking about today is one cog in the watch. What Oli was talking about is one cog in the watch. So this trauma from 9/11 to the Oklahoma City bombing to, I mean, the war in the Ukraine, I mean, it just never ends because it's not designed to end. Because if it ends, it's proven that the brain function comes back online. And if it ever does, the group that's organizing our trauma gets taken out. That's the research. So as soon as our brains come online, we will attack and dispose of the aggressor. So, but it's like battered woman syndrome.
Mm.
So I don't know if people know what battered woman syndrome. People might think it's a description of a woman getting battered, which it is, but in Canada, it's actually a legal defense for the woman killing her abuser, where the woman can go off scot-free because it's actually natural when your brain function comes online to kill your aggressor.
Mm.
So it's sort of, there's some similarities there between what the government does, how they maintain control over us, and also between, like, there's some similarities between how an aggressive male dominates their battered woman, because that male would know he has to bring in the trauma and the beatings and the aggressive attacks on a regular basis, or she'll regain her proper brain function and attack him. So, what I'm trying to say is they traumatize us so that we never get our mental footing. We aren't allowed to, and the thing is, to get your mental faculties back online, it has to be free and clear of the addictions as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they'll traumatize us, but we'll keep re-traumatizing ourselves with our addictions. So it's almost like we take the baton of our abuser, who might have abused us. Like, I was circumcised once, but I don't think I got, thank God it was only once. I don't know what would happen to the penis if it was circumcised more than one time. But the fact of the matter is, the trauma can only happen once, like circumcision, a sexual assault. And then you'll see that people that are traumatized, they can spiral for decades
Mm.
into tobacco abuse, alcohol, drugs, narcotics, scrolling addiction, pornography addiction, always looking to sedate or even bond in a way, sort of relax the nervous system, or even through pornography, pretend someone else is there and bond a little bit with something that's on the screen. So this group does both. I want people to understand they do both, but they have this one other trick that I will describe, but I'll let you ask or make a comment before I get into the really insidious way they make people addicted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would just like to briefly circle back to the coffee on your website. Uh, it's been a while. I've read an article, and there was a lady who asked you to, if you had to eliminate, you had to choose one thing to eliminate, what would it be? And you said coffee. So now somebody might argue that, yeah, let's say alcohol, cocaine can,
Heroin.
if you really abuse it in a wild way, can cause a lot more damage than coffee. Why did you pick coffee?
Because it's the most popular drug that does exponential damage to the nervous system.
Mm.
So it's the one that they're probably doing. And if you are drinking coffee, I'm releasing an article today. If someone wants to get this article, I forget what the name of it is. It's sort of like why Canadians can't react to their countrywide takeover. Coffee has a lot to do with it. Now, I know that sounds particularly bizarre, that coffee might be the soma drug talked about in Huxley's Brave New World, but be patient, read the article. Now, if you want the article again, email me at info@jchristoff.com. Ask about the article about the Canadian takeover, why Canadians can't react, and my assistant will send that out to you. And yeah, coffee is something most people are probably doing, and it has a very, very particular effect on brain function. It destroys what's called hippocampal neurogenesis. Someone's like, oh, that's a big word. Let me tell you what hippocampal neurogenesis is. At night, when your body tries to log all your memories for the day, and it will do that no matter what. So like today, your body, no matter what, will use this pathway to remember what happened throughout your whole day. There's supposed to be enough pathways to keep the old memories alive and log the new ones. Basically, so there has to be sort of an expansion of the pathways. That's hippocampal neurogenesis, sort of the growth of the hippocampus pathway. Now, when you have coffee, you can't grow the hippocampus memory pathways. So the body, who has a mandatory obligation to log today's memories, starts phasing out old ones for the same sort of RAM memory inside that part of the brain. So as a ruler, there's a particular advantage if I can give you a substance where you can actually forget the past. I can wipe your memory clear, wipe your computer hard drive completely clear, and leave you no point of reference in order to decide what's dangerous or not. Because that's what the hippocampus is for. What's dangerous, what's not dangerous. And if I can give you sort of a sedative, tranquilizing compound that makes you feel groovy, while at the same time eliminating your ability to judge danger from non-danger, safety from non-safety, I really got you. And I hope that's obvious. Now, again, it will all be explained in the article, but if you really want to know what I'm talking about, Dr. Michael Nels wrote a book recently called The Indoctrinated Brain. I've seen a lot of his interviews, and they're hit and miss because they're all about hippocampal neurogenesis, because he was talking about the thing that went in the shoulder having the same effect as what I just described about coffee. And it takes him sometimes to hit the strong points. So I don't really like a lot of his talks. I know they're important, but he did an interview with Tucker Carlson recently. So if you just look up Dr. Michael Nels and Tucker Carlson, you'll see a 45-minute talk. And it only focuses on hippocampal neurogenesis. It only focuses on the thing people put into their shoulders, but it has the same pathway as caffeine. I don't think he knows that.
Mm-hmm.
So I've discovered that what he's talking about also applies to changes in the brain when you drink coffee. I also know that Bill Gates owns Starbucks, and he bought it with Howard Schultz in 1986 when it only had 6 stores. Now it has 34,000 shops. You tell me what's going on here. If you know how to connect the dots, what's really going on here? Why is there a coffee shop on every corner? Why is there chocolate on Halloween? Why are the big energy drink explosions? And these energy drinks came into Canada 20 years ago. And when they did, Health Canada issued a heart attack warning on these drinks, and then quickly redacted it. Why? Why? And why are the big pre-workout powders all loaded with caffeine? All the colas are with caffeine, all the chocolates with caffeine. Everything's chocolate. I mean, chocolate mousse. I mean, I would have it with you but a daily cup of coffee is different than one coffee every 2 weeks. So there's some big issues in regards to taking over a society known by this group, but not known by the public. And although the average person is really smart and really intelligent and would recognize the Korean army coming down the road in a tank with a red star on it, they would certainly recognize that. The average person doesn't understand what's called 5th-generation warfare, where I'm going to trick you to attack yourself. I'm going to trick you to poison yourself, take yourself out, take your kids out. And I'm going to do it through, we'll get there. We'll get to the mind control aspect of alcohol and addictions. We'll get there. But using mind control, because, I just spoke at the US Senate on mind control, Romanian Parliament, EU Parliament. That's where I've spoken on mind control. That's what 5th-generation warfare is yes, you understand cruise missile tanks and infantry and barbed wire. You understand that. But do you understand basically that your coffee shops may be a modern warfare weapon that you volunteer to participate in daily? Could it be like that? Well, the research says this is the best way to dumb a society down to the point where you can do anything with them. Because if you don't have a hippocampal regeneration process on a 24-hour basis, in your own metabolism, you actually have no ability to judge what's dangerous or not. Have you noticed today that we're in danger and the average person doesn't react like they're in danger? They just keep on doing what's fun, executing their First Amendment right to have fun. So I hope that makes some sense about what are the dangers of caffeine. And it's not only about wrecking the hippocampus, which I'm sure people have no idea about. Caffeine causes ulcers, it causes strokes, heart attacks, it causes carpal tunnel, it causes Crohn's, diverticulitis, colitis, it causes blood clots, it causes periphery strokes, it causes strokes in the brain. It's so unhealthy for you. And again, all the unhealthy, it causes depression, it causes a suicidal ideation, everything about how unhealthy coffee is, minus the hippocampal research, is in Stephen Chernisky's book, Caffeine Blues. So I suggest people start understanding that they've set you up with chemicals. The group highlighted in that documentary, Cult of the Medics, they don't like traditional warfare because it's too obvious. They like to get chemicals into you to dumb you down, make you overweight, make you sick, put you in a wheelchair with an IV bag taped on the side with duct tape. That's where they want you. They want you just barely alive enough to get to that job that benefits them. They don't want you having any extra energy or brain power to figure any of this all out. They're chemical experts, first and foremost. Fluoride, Teflon coating on your cookware. None of this is by accident. They know what these chemicals do, and it's all about making you less and less and less able to react to their encroachments.
Well, before we started recording, I told you that I looked into Schüssler salts recently, and so far I have to say I'm really very impressed with the results that I got. And there is one Schüssler salt here in Germany. It's called Kalium chloratum. I noticed that in the United States, they give these salts other names, and sometimes they switch the numbers because all these salts are numbered from 1 to 12. Those are the basic salts. But anyway, so Kalium chloratum binds chemical toxins in the body. And while I was reading about it, I came to one passage where it said, if you are deficient of this salt, then your body starts craving alcohol. So there you
Whoa.
have the vicious circle.
Wow. Yeah, there's some weird stuff going on. I would, there's a point where you do so much research, it almost looks like you're in Hogwarts. I have to be honest with people. The longer I research and the deeper I go, you're getting into the realm of like people in robes with magic wands, because to get to get a human to hurt themselves, it is a form of magic. And I have given presentations on large stages about mind control and how it does border on sort of ancient black magic, because we're getting tricked to hurt ourselves over and over again every single day. Even if you're having alcohol or whatever, there's the addiction. So maybe I'll tell people their most insidious trick for getting you addiction, because at least it might start the rage energy inside the people. How's that? How's Kitty doing? She hasn't come across. There she goes. I thought we were free and clear. Yeah, are you still? Exactly. All right, Judith. So let's tell the audience how they can be mind controlled to drink when really it's a poison that has no benefit financially for people, that has no benefit health wise, and of course I have an alcohol article on alcohol. People can email me too at info@jchristoff.com if they want this article. It starts with this guy He was hired by the UK government to find the most dangerous drug in the UK society, the one that just decimated people, caused misery and hundreds of billions of dollars in lost revenue. So he says it was a slam dunk. He came back to the government and said, "Yeah, I got your results. Thanks for the check. Here we go. It's alcohol, hands down." They said, "You're fired. You're fired." Because the group was just doing that for window dressing. They know why they have alcohol throughout the slave camp. They know that. They know it's there to sedate, to screw up, make people weak. They're not taking it off the shelves. It's up to us to stop drinking it. But everything else, it causes cancer, causes brain damage. They've even shown that every ounce of alcohol lessens your life by, I think it was 5 or 6 minutes. So this lie, lies cause pain, that alcohol is healthy in moderation. Complete another lie. There are compounds in grape skin that help you live longer, but you can get that compound without drinking wine. So they're always lying about, I mean, they lie about everything. This is one of their famous tactics as well. It's called dialectics. They lie about everything because it becomes like a mental battered woman syndrome. A lie can damage someone over and over again the same way a fist can as well. So this group, they know how to do it. And they know that a chemically dumbed down and weak society is so much easier to rule. And don't forget the infantilized society, who's also weak. It's just an extra bonus. So this group knows this ancient black magic sorcery called mind control. They really know how to do it. And I'll give people an example about how what you put on the screen changes the behavior of the people. So I'll give the example I usually give. In 2001, there was a movie called Gone in 60 Seconds with Angelina Jolie and Nicolas Cage. It's a movie about car theft. There's a lot of repetition in the movie about car theft. Now, this is where the black magic sorcery change your behavior story begins. Because this group, as well as many psychologists, know that we have an invisible defense. We have many invisible defense systems that run in our body outside our conscious awareness. One of them is a cut healing. You get cut, it'll heal. You don't have to have a say in it. You're confident that the cut is healing. It's just automatic. But you couldn't shut it off. You couldn't accelerate it. You're not in control. So the average person is already aware that there are safety functions running in their own bodies that they have no control of. One of the safety mechanisms that the average person doesn't know, but psychologists know, it's running all the time. We have an invisible part of the brain called the subconscious looking for repetition. It's part of the protection mechanism. It's part of it because when the subconscious looks out, it will always be looking for repetitive content, and it writes it down sort of like a server at a restaurant, very ferociously, trying to see what's the most repetitive content of the environment I'm in, because the most repetitive content of your environment reflects what the bigger herd is saying, thinking, or doing. And then if you can mimic that, if you can mirror that content, you have a greater chance of being accepted by the tribe, because humans like other humans who act, talk, and think like they do. So this process is always running. You have one part of the subconscious assessing repetitive content, looking for what the bigger herd is doing, thinking, and saying. But there's a secondary part that forces you to act it out outside your conscious awareness. 92 to 97% of all your daily behavior is coming from this system, forcing you to act out things in order to bond with the bigger herd by mimicking what they're doing, thinking, and saying. So in the movie Gone in 60 Seconds, the repetitive content was car theft based. And this part of the brain is proven it. If you're in the theater, it doesn't know the difference between what's on the screen, what's happening in real life, and even what you imagine. No difference. It's always looking for the repetitive content even if it's in your mind's eye. Definitely doesn't know what's on the screen isn't real. That's why you jump during a scary movie at the theater, your heart beats faster. It's reacting like it's real because to your body, it is real. So once that movie about car theft called Gone in 60 Seconds was released in Burnaby, BC, Canada, car theft went up 70% in the first 4 days. So not everybody stole a car, but a lot more people stole a car. If they would have sat down everybody again and exposed them to maybe 2 weeks of similar content, everybody would have stole a car. And if you were to ask people if this is even possible, they would have said, absolutely not. I'm in full control of my behavior. I'm so smart. I got my master's. I got my PhD. I got my doctorate. I'm above this mind control stuff. I'm different. I got control. No, you don't. Because this is what this group does, is knows that this protective mechanism that loves us is always trying to make us mimic the most repetitive content of our environment. This is why this group loves screens. They can't control the real world, what you see, but they can control the screen. They can give you drama, fear, panic, terror, 24 hours a day. But their favorite repetitive content, number one, hands down, you can check this yourself. I'll tell you how to check it. Coffee. Coffee's their number one repetitive imprint for a reason. A takeout coffee cup, a clay coffee mug, a espresso machine on the back counter, or a percolator coffee machine on the back counter of the house, or the kitchen, wherever that scene is in the movie, or a whole coffee shop like in Friends, the Central Perk. So the second is alcohol. And then the third, drugs, or empowered females, weak males. They have a hierarchy of messages that they put throughout all the movies. This is why they give you the fake freedom as well, because if you're in the cinema lobby deciding what movie to go to, you can go to Brad Pitt's movie, or Morgan Freeman's. You can go see The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, or you can see Chris Tucker, or Jack Black. They don't care, because they put the coffee in every movie. They put the alcohol in every movie. They put the disempowered, buffoonish male in every movie. They put the super ripped, super empowered single mom in every movie as well. They put the novel gay character in every movie as well. They know that what's on the screen at noon will be on the street at night. So whatever they want you to do to yourself, however they want to change your behavior, they will make sure to drown you in the repetitive content. And this part of the brain as well will take down the repetitive content in every movie, every radio sort of transmission you hear, every print media, every billboard, and it adds it up. It thinks your whole life is one big drama to analyze for repetitive content. So they don't have to even drown you with too much repetitive content in one movie. They'll mimic it out in the TV shows. They'll mimic it out in the newspapers. They'll mimic it out on the radio transmissions. And this is exactly what they do to modify the behavior. And again, their primary 1-2 punch is always caffeine and alcohol. So it becomes normalized. So people mimic it, so that they copy it. We'll copy anything that's on the screen that's repetitive. There was a show in the 80s, the late 80s, called The Cosby Show. That was with Bill Cosby. I know he's in a lot of trouble right now, but his
Yeah, for
show,
good reason.
for definitely good reason. His show he was an African-American medical doctor, Mr. Huxtable. His wife, Claire, was an African-American lawyer, Claire Huxtable. And during the 9-year run of the show, Black enrollment in med school and law school was at 19% higher than when they started the show. They deemed that the Cosby effect. Too positive. they said they canceled the show because the ratings were low, but if you go back and see the ratings, they weren't so low as to cancel it. They canceled it to make sure there wasn't any positive mimicry in the Black community, because I've done research. There's something special about the Black community. They're always trying to keep under wraps. Very powerful community, very powerful gene line. So again, the ancient sorcerer is at work there. But humans copy, mimic, and emulate the most repetitive content of their environment in order to try and find safety with the bigger herd. It's an invisible protection mechanism. It's going on 24 hours a day. The group ruling us know that. So when they want us to be messy and addicted, they just give us the negative content. We mimic it 24 hours a day.
Hmm. So when people say, I cannot cope with a withdrawal, what would you suggest?
Well, absolutely, you're looking at some pain there. And what do you mean you can't cope? I understand you probably can't, but what's like, what is the alternative, right? To the withdrawal. You're just going to die a painful and premature death and stay addicted the whole time, stay a child your entire life, be a drain on everybody. Don't forget, as adults, for any society to survive, the adults have to be a provider of energy, a provider of basically life, value, energy, workforce. The average person today, when they're addicted, they might be addicted in their adult years. They're actually a taker of energy. That's the definition of a child. So anybody that's an adult age and is acting, thinking like a child, they are actually facilitating the destruction of the entire society in which they live, which means their premature and painful death is imminent, which is actually what we're looking down the barrel of that gun right now. It's been designed to be like this. We're a society collapsing and exploding into its own footprint
Hmm.
because of these addictive, these infantilized ideas. I can't cope with my reality. Well, the other option is that you're going to be put in a camp, and the camp might have some coffee, some free Wi-Fi, and a little gym, but it's also a prison. And for
Hmm.
you to be happy, you won't even have the option if you don't break out. If our society doesn't break out of these cycles right now, they won't even have the freedom or the option to break out of them in the future. This will be stolen from them. So we're in a bit of a nosedive right now. We're plunging from 40,000 feet straight down. We either pull up or we die. There is no door number three, unfortunately.
Yeah. So in other words, buck up and feel the pain.
Yeah, you got to feel the pain, and you do it gradually too, and understand it's about progress and not perfection. And it is dependent, to be honest with you, like your self-determination and your courage and your willpower mean they're only 2% of the whole battle here. This subconscious mind pathway that counts repetition is so powerful. It's like an 800-pound gorilla. It doesn't judge long-term consequences. It just wants to find safety with the repetitive content. So whether you want to quit coffee or not, whether you want to quit alcohol or not, whether you want to quit drugs or not, you got to get that 800-pound gorilla on your side, because its job is to drag you toward the repetitive content. And if you don't want to go, that gorilla, which is, 10 times your size, it doesn't care. It's going to drag you kicking and screaming. Now, it could drag you to the addiction if your friends are addicts, if you watch addict shows all the time, if you listen to addict-based music, which most people do. Everything's death and misery, depression, destruction, fear, panic, and terror. That's mostly what people are taking in. So, of course, the 800-pound gorilla is going to drag you toward that destination, which is your addiction, because that's where you're going to get all those characteristics satisfied. So, your job is to understand willpower means very little, determination and your goals mean very little. You got to employ that 800-pound gorilla And the only way to do that is use the magic toward your advantage. You have to control the repetitive content of your entire life, podcasts that are positive. No TV, there's nothing on TV, trust me, that will trick that 800-pound gorilla to drag you to safety. Nothing. So that's why I don't watch TV. I'll listen to classical music because it's beautiful.
Mm.
It has a beautiful vibration. I especially got addicted to it when I was in Vienna a couple of years ago. And beautiful architecture there too. And in podcasts that are positive. And sometimes I want to change where the 800-pound gorilla is dragging me. Sometimes I want a little bit more financial abundance in my life. So I'm going to like really turn the volume up on the repetitive content in the financial area. Sometimes if I'm having challenges in my relationship with my beautiful better half, Christine, I'll turn up the repetition on how to make relationships better and turn down the repetition on the financial abundance. And I control my environment where I'm surrounded by beauty all the time. I go to locations that are beautiful, listen to things that are beautiful, make sure artwork around me is beautiful, sort of cymatic shapes all around me in my house that gives off beautiful vibration. In order for the gorilla to say, wherever I drag you, obviously for us to be safe, it has to be beautiful. So I'm really trying to drown my invisible protection pathway in the subconscious with beautiful, empowering, and abundant content, regardless of what it is. Because the gorilla just says, hey, if I drag him somewhere that's not beautiful and abundant, and well, I'm not doing my job. And that's how you facilitate change. You can use the power of repetitive content, like the people who rule us use it, to make us a human mess. Or you can grab the wand, control the repetitive content, and make your life or make yourself a human success. Mess or success, you get to decide, but the repetitive content of your environment will determine where that 800-pound gorilla will drag you, and you don't have a say.
Mm.
How does that sound, Judith? That's why everybody's an alcoholic.
I wouldn't say everybody.
No, but people who have a hard time quitting addictions,
Yeah.
these are the factors at play. Sort of like that dome effect, pain is a goblin. And then, of course, the trickery in all the movies, all the TV shows. Even I tell people, watch your TV tonight, watch your movie, do your regular routine, but at least look for the coffee mug, coffee cup, coffee machine in the coffee shop. At least do that. At least
Yeah,
do that.
since you mentioned that, I always, if I watch something, I always watch out when the first a cup of coffee comes in.
Oh my, it's such a fun game, Judith. I mean, it's a really fun game if I'm sitting with a friend, and I don't like watching, but I don't watch my own, but I was down with a friend yesterday, says, you got to watch this start of this movie. And I said, look, I'll watch it for 10 minutes. And so we had the game. Who's gonna like what time does the first coffee imprint? It's called an imprint. When does the first coffee imprint come in? And it was like, 5 minutes and 35 seconds. It was so easy to pick out. It's like a game. Make a game of it.
Mm, mm. Um, Yesterday I had an interview with Wayne Steiger. I don't know if you know of him. And at the beginning of our interview, I read a quote that I found in an article that was titled "The Bad Faith Olympics."
The Bad Faith Olympics. I like
And
that.
it says here, this is the weirdest time in human history. By far, nothing else even comes close. I will leave out the next sentence because I don't want YouTube to cancel, to delete my videos again. And then it goes on, civil society unable to form a coherent thought. Institutions lie in smoldering ruins. Poisons handed out like candy. We are Neanderthals with iPhones.
Oh, I'm gonna use that quote, that last sentence. I'm gonna put in a quote, one of my favorite quotes today. We are Neanderthals with cell phones. But the thing is, we weren't born like that. No one's born this stupid or this messy. No one, but this is the power of mind control, is this 800-pound gorilla. If you, and don't forget, and I'll give you a good example here, public. There was a movie called Outbreak. It was when I was a kid. It was Dustin Hoffman. Cuba Gooding
Yeah,
Jr.,
I
I
have
think, was
seen
in
it.
it too. It was a movie about viruses, and everybody's got the hazmat suits on. And then more recently, we had Contagion with Lawrence Fishburne and Matt Damon. We had World War Z with Brad Pitt, I Am Legend with Will Smith. And see, even 28 Days, which was a European production, it was about sort of a similar outbreak in London, England, and it was spread all over the world. These things, people, okay, I'm going to really connect some dots. There's 300 to 350 movies that are from the same genre over the last 25 years, purposely repeated. I use that word purposely here, the purposely repeated to get into your mind, into this part of the brain, so that the repetitive content can be lived out. And this is the ambush they have, is the average person today thinks that what happened in 2020 happened organically in 2020. Your reactions to what happened in 2020 have been impregnated into you through repetitive content since the time you've been born, because they've been planning this event for a very long time. And I'll also tell you that not only do humans naturally mimic the repetitive content in an attempt to be with the group, animals that are poisoned, humans that are poisoned, are weaker animals. And weaker animals, even if you study a wolf that's injured, he's poisoned, he can't fight, he goes to the middle of the wolf pack because he can't fend for himself. Injured animals need the group more. Poisoned animals are injured animals. And so that means whatever the repetitive content is, which represents the group, the weaker you are, the more poisoned you are, the more you are attracted to the group. So not only are they using this natural herd herd development technology where, I'm going to go be safe in the group, they're poisoning us and weakening us so that we're more like really attracted, or magnetically, we have a magnetic affinity for the group the weaker we are. So not only is this a natural defense system where we go toward the repetitive content, we go faster and we go in greater numbers if we're poisoned.
Mm.
So poisoning and repetitive content, poisoning and repetitive content. I teach this around the world. They got a 2-barrel shotgun, poisoning and repetitive content. And if you can figure that out and start looking at your shows for how many alcohol bottles there are, how many coffee cups there are, they want you drinking it on the coffee because it's poison. So in the movie, not only are they going to have the repetitive content they want you to act out, like in Will Smith, they'll also have all the coffee so that you can poison yourself before you act out the content.
Mm.
They're masters of getting you to do really stupid stuff, being Neanderthals with cell phones, and basically they can mind control you to walk off a cliff. And Judith, if you allow me to discuss The Push by Darren Brown, I'll show you how powerful mind control can really be.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, very simple. Darren Brown, mind control expert, one of the best in the world, has a nonstop buffet, all you can eat buffet of mind control examples that you can find on YouTube. He does a Netflix special called The Push because he's the #1 mind control expert in the world. It's very hard to find that made for Netflix special now, because if you did watch it, you'd understand exactly what went on in 2020. If you need to watch it, email me info@jchristoff.com. I'll just send it to you. It's 2-hour experiment. He's organizing the whole thing. It's elaborate. 70 people, 70 actors, one person one member of the public, doesn't know what's going on. He's not an actor, surrounded by 70 actors in this very elaborate setup. It goes on for 2 hours. It's all the mind control techniques I talked about, repetitive content and group, the group pressure. The 2 hour crescendo, it ends on top of a 10-story building. For whatever reason, you can discover inside this made for Netflix special, you'll watch it yourself. For whatever reason, there is an old man on top of the 10-story building. He's got his feet hanging off the side. And don't worry, though, it's not really an old man. It's a stunt man. It's a stunt man for a reason, and he's harnessed. But the one member of the public, with the victim here of the mind control experiment by Darren Brown, he doesn't know any of this is going on. So it ends up on top of the roof for whatever scenario they drew up. You'll watch it yourself. And the one victim, the one member of the public, is surrounded by 5 actors. Out of the 70 actors, we're down to 5 actors surrounding this one victim on the roof. And it's this group pressure, push and push and pushing this guy. This is what the name of the special is. It's called The Push. And they're pushing him to go murder the old man and push him off the side of the 10-story building and kill him live on video. Now, you want to know how powerful group pressure can be and repetitive content? It's the repetitive content of the group, all saying the same thing, want to be a member of the group. We're pack animals. Humans are pack animals. We want to fit in. This experiment was run 4 different times with 4 different people. 3 out of the 4 people murdered the man live on camera, murdered him.
But
So
one did not. That gives me hope.
one did not, and there's reasons why he didn't. Physical strength. He was taller. If you know how a hypnotist works on a stage, he was actually taller than all the other people putting pressure on him. So he felt like he could defend himself in a group attack.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the thing about physical strength is a big component of resisting group pressure. This is what I teach, actually. I teach all the modalities where you can resist the group pressure, learn to see it, and sidestep its terrible consequences. So basically, if they can trick, this is with 2 hours of manipulation, Judith. We've been getting manipulated for our whole lives.
Yeah.
So if they can get someone to commit murder live on video with only 2 hours of psychic manipulation based on group pressure and repetitive content, of course they can make us queue up in line to do the same to ourselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is the power, but we can use and harness that power to our advantage by controlling our own content, in knowing the tricks of the magician. Because if you go to a magic show and you know how the magic trick is done, it's not an entertaining show. It doesn't impress. So I teach in my school. I have an international online sort of psychological reprogramming institute, and I teach people how all these magic tricks work so that the government and media magicians no longer dominate the magic show. It will no longer impress the public. I hope people can find hope in that, because this is what I do as an occupation.
Mm. When you just said he was taller, he was stronger, but I also made an observation starting in 2020, really tall, muscular guys sitting with a face diaper all by themselves in their SUV. So there must be something else going on, not just physical strength.
Yeah, those, just because you have big muscles doesn't mean you're physically strong. This guy was a natural male. The ones you sort of describe, in Europe, a lot of them are on steroids. As soon as you take steroids to become muscular, or you do it artificially, there's a weakening of the system. Not on the outward appearance, on the inner soul, on the inner soul level. The subconscious knows that someone who's building muscles artificially isn't fit for a conflict and will force the compliance. I used to take steroids. I know this in and out. The strongest you'll ever feel mentally is off the steroids. Doesn't mean you're going to look the best. Doesn't mean you're going to, you will always perform better without steroids. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So do you have any final advice for people who would like to go down that road and finally talk to, how did you call it? Pain?
The pain teacher,
The pain teacher, yeah.
I tell people, look, don't worry. It's about progress. It's not about perfection. You
Mm.
might, like, say, when I'm treating or dealing with clients, they might have a porn addiction. They might have an alcohol addiction, cigarette, marijuana. When someone quits for 2 days and then gets back into it, it's a total victory because that's the first repetitive imprint of success that we ever got in their nervous system in 10 years. Yeah, it was one day, but it was a repetitive thing that their psyche will be able to bite into on a later date where it's not so unfamiliar. So most of my, like, even with me, when I quit drinking alcohol, I used to drink, say, when I would go out, not every night, please. Don't think I used to drink this every night. But when I went out, I would have 15 martinis, like
Wow.
blackout drunk. And basically, I would do that about once a week. So then I'd still go out once a week and I'd have 8 martinis, and that went on for 2 months. And then the next 2 months, I had 5 martinis. Then after that, I had 3 martinis. And then I would like have 3 martinis twice a month, not 4 times a month. So it was this downward trajectory, how to deal with these addictions. So I quit steroids like that. Cocaine was a pretty fast quit because I just thought, I'm going to have a heart attack. This probably isn't a good idea. That one was quit really fast. So it was kind of like a dead stop. We're not doing that anymore. Alcohol was 2 years. Steroids took longer too, because I was sort of like I was not comfortable with my own physique naturally. I had to change the way I trained, and there's a lot of pain in that. Like, if you want to be muscular without steroids, there's a lot of pain. You got to eat really well, go to bed on time. Like, there's a lot of pain there. So it took me longer with the steroids. The junk food was probably the same as with the alcohol. I don't eat the junk food anymore. So don't just understand it's about the repetitive content of the environment you put yourself into. Even paintings in your own house can affect you. Get some positive phraseology up, expose yourself to positive groups, even if it's online. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between screen time, if it's a real group or not. A lot of my groups that I get my inspiration from, I visit them once or twice a year in person. But other than that, like, I'm taking in the repetitive content through my screen, shows the value of the screens. The screens can be used for detriment, or they can be used for something positive. So just understand it's going to take you a little while, but every day, like, there's one guy I was dealing with, he's addicted to pornography. We just got him to the point where he's like masturbating once every week instead of masturbating once a day. Like, this is a major, major victory, because after that, he's probably going to go 2 weeks. And then if we can get him masturbating once every 2 weeks, it's soon, like, we're getting really close where he's not going to need it whatsoever.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in other words, don't have too high expectations. And even if you slip once, that isn't the end of the world.
You're going to keep going back. And the whole thing is longer and longer durations outside the addiction. Even if it's a 6 hour extension and you're back in the addiction, it's still a victory,
Mm.
right? Because if you did 24 hours outside the addiction and then fell back into it, and then the next time you dust it off and went for it again, you go 36, this is still a 50% gain.
Hmm.
And people will really miss that, is that for us in our institute, longer and longer durations outside the addiction is the only goal we aim for.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. And yeah, so that was it, Night Flight for today. We hope that was useful. And we see you all next time. Until then, stay safe and sound.